Hi everyone, this is my final project for big data processing using Hadoop. I have decided to do this using Apache Airflow with integrations of EMR. So the objectives for this presentation is to go over what is Apache Airflow, what is EMR, the goals for this project, and then also give a demonstration of what I have set up. So what is Apache Airflow? So Apache Airflow is a platform to programmatically author, schedule, and or monitor workflows. It utilizes directed acyclic graphs or DAGs to execute these workflows. Each DAG will have several tasks which can be arranged in any sequence. Now, Amazon actually has its own version of Apache Airflow called Amazon Managed Workflows for Apache Airflow. It is a managed orchestration service, so we don't really see the servers behind it. Using MWAA, we can easily integrate with other AWS services to expedite for efficient data processing. So what is EMR? Amazon EMR is a managed cluster platform that simplifies running big data frameworks such as Apache Hadoop on AWS. And how you might ask, like, how is it different than the Hadoop we've been using this whole class? EMR is hosted on a cloud platform, whereas like Hadoop is usually hosted like locally on a machine. Since it is on AWS, it can be easily integrated with other services that Amazon provides, which is a huge plus. Now the goals for this project would be to set up an MWAA cluster, integrate with EMR, and I want two DAGs essentially, one that spins on an on-demand EMR cluster and one that uses an existing EMR cluster to process some data, and then I want to run these DAGs successfully. And I'll bring you to the presentation. Hi all, I just wanted to give a quick demo on how I set up the Amazon Managed Workflows for Apache Airflow, or MWAA for short. In summary, I already created an environment, so let me just go to that. Okay, so I have an environment named Airflow. Let me just look at the variables inside here. So you can see that I chose the latest version of Airflow, and from here you can also choose the maintenance service window as well. One of the prerequisites for this instance is to create an S3 bucket, and inside the S3 bucket you only really need a DAGs folder, so Airflow can pick up any instance of the DAGs. Next. You can also choose some buckets and a requirements file if it's required. You actually need to create a virtual private cloud just for that Airflow instance. You're not allowed to just use an existing one. Yeah, you can see like I can change it after the fact. And within this, I'm able to create a public network so anyone with internet access can access it. Maybe this wouldn't be good for an organization just for the fact that you need to control who has access to your Airflow. And I just created a new security group. I also modified some of the environment class variables just to save some cost, and I also made sure to enable all the monitoring. As you can see, Cloud Watch Metrics is automatically turned on, and I just made sure to enable it for like all the other types of logs so we can see what's going on inside our cluster. For the permissions, you just need to make sure, I'll go into this a little bit later, but that whatever execution role has the desired permissions. So since I'm using the EMR and S3 services, we need to make sure that this execution role has access to those services. And here's just a review of everything that we talked about. So I just wanted to touch upon the permissions of the existing cluster that we just created together. So if I click this link and open it in a new tab, you can see it brings me to the exact permission. We'll just give it a second. Actually, I have another tab open here. So as you can see, this role is the same role as the one mentioned directly in the thing. So as you can see, there's several permissions that I attached to this role, but there's only 3 that are really needed. So the first one is Amazon S3 full access. So the Amazon S3 full access it allows the Airflow instance to have full access to any S3 bucket on your account. The CloudWatch full access is so that you're able to view the logs within the Airflow tasks, and any other tasks you're able to Airflow is able to push logs there and you're able to view them. And since we're using the EMR cluster to spin up on-demand jobs, I also give it full access to the MapReduce functionalities here. So after you create all the prerequisites for the Airflow environment, you just go ahead and hit create. And then you wait around like 40 minutes for the Airflow stuff to show up. I do want to make a note that since this is a managed Airflow instance, if you look in EC2, you're not going to see any of the EC2 servers because they're all managed behind. They're like managed inside of this Airflow instance. So if I go to the UI, which I already have open here, you can see that I have 3 DAGs already enabled, and a few of them are running already. If I go to the S3 bucket where I referenced that there was a DAG folder here, let me just go through that. DAGs. You'll see that I have three Python files here to correlate to those 3 DAGs. Let's go back here. So I really want to just focus on these 2 DAGs here, the word count DAG and the word count existing EMR DAG. So the word count DAG is pretty simple and self-explanatory. So first it will check a file in S3, and once it finds that file, it will, by the way, it will wait for around like 2 minutes before it finds the file and gives up and cancels this whole flow. Once it finds the file though, it will go ahead and create an EMR cluster on demand, and it will also add the steps that I asked it to in the Python file. And then this step, we just like watch to make sure that the steps are completed. And then after the steps are completed, we go ahead and remove the cluster. So quickly, I just wanted to show you the Python file for this word count. Okay, so this isn't too bad. So we just have to create a DAG variable, and then we have an S3 sensor where we have to reference which bucket we're gonna or which text file we're gonna look for. And this is the job flow overrides property is to create the actual EMR cluster. I did downsize it a little bit, so it just has to create 1 and 1. And then it will go ahead and do 2 Spark tasks, so Spark steps. So this first one, it will just like copy the Python file for wordcount.py into the Hadoop home directory in the file system. And then the second one will run it through Spark. Okay, and then these tasks, they just like are gonna create the cluster. Then they're gonna add the steps to the cluster. By the way, these are the steps again, and this will just wait until the all the steps are completed, and then after the steps are completed, we'll just remove the cluster. Okay, so let's just refresh this. Oh no, actually, let's play it. Trigger DAG. So this is how you play DAGs. It will bring you back to this tree view. You can go back to graph. You can see that it found the file in S3. So say I didn't have the file in S3. Let me look at the logs. By the way, this is how you look at logs. You can look at these through CloudWatch as well, but I like looking at them through the Airflow UI. So you see that it's poking around for and data raw sample.txt file. If I go back to here, data raw sample.txt. So I see sample.txt is right here. And also let me just make sure that my output directory doesn't exist. Good, it doesn't exist. Okay. And now we see that these steps are already completed, but let me just go to the EMR cluster to show you. So if I click on clusters and drag this over a little bit and let it load, you'll see that there's a new EMR cluster spun up from the Airflow instance. So this is for an on-demand EMR cluster. This would be good for anyone who doesn't want to pay for a running cluster like all the time. You can just spin one up on demand to run your job, and then as soon as it dies, you just stop getting charged. So let this load. So you see that it's still in the starting state, but if I do go to steps, you see that the steps that I asked it to in here are copied over. Let me just scroll over. So the setup, copy files, and the run Spark, they correlate to these steps here. So this part did its job, and now we're just watching to let it go through the process. I'm going to fast forward this portion just for the fact it does take around like 6 minutes for the job or the cluster to spin up. Okay, cool. So now you see that the cluster is actually running. it's going to go through these 2 steps here. I can just hit refresh. Okay, cool. Now you see that these 2 steps are completed. So if I go back to here, I'm sure this is going to end any second now. Okay, so see, saw it move from the watch step to remove cluster. If I refresh this, I'm sure that it's going to go into terminating. Yeah, so you see that this is terminating. Something just to bring up again is that, let me see. So I'm sure you understood from the DAG word count, but this is just taking in a sample file, and then from it uses this PySpark thing, and then, or this PySpark script, takes in a sample file and puts the output to data out in S3. So if I go to S3, I'm already on the page, I refresh it, there should be a folder called out here. Yep, there is. Okay, so after it loads, you see that there's 2 parts to this file, just like we saw in HDFS. So if I download, I'll just download one of them. Save it. I'll replace that old one. If I go to Finder, and I open this, you see that from the sample.txt, I'll just show you the sample.txt. It is counting the number of words per the sample file here. For this next DAG, so this is the same exact program as the word count one that we just looked at, except it's using an existing EMR cluster. So if I run this, and I'll just do run again, trigger DAG. I'll go to graph view so we know what it's doing. It's looking for the S3 file check. Let me just drag that over. Oh, it's failed to add steps. Let's see what's wrong. Log. It's saying that it cannot find this cluster, basically. So let me just make sure this cluster is still, auto-terminated. Okay, so it looks like one of my, the EMR cluster that I have here, it auto-terminated that it was using, because I just said terminate after 30 minutes, that's fine. Let me just clone it. But in the meantime as well, I will update, so essentially to run a DAG through Airflow, you need to make sure to reference the ID inside the DAG file. So I have a variable here called cluster ID. I have to change this every time I want to run that DAG on that cluster, and this is a good thing to do because now you can see how I upload everything. So if I just go back here, go to Airflow, go to DAGs, just hit upload files. I'll re-add this existing file and upload it back. Successful, great. So then I'm going to, so also with Airflow, you can just go to the code here and see if your, essentially you can just see if your change was pushed correctly. So if I just refresh the page, so you see that the cluster ID refreshed after some time. I think everything should be good. Yeah, I don't see logs here. Alrighty, so if I go to here, this is the exact same program, except it's running on the existing EMR cluster that we just created. So I just hit trigger DAG here. If I go to graph, you see that it's just doing the same exact steps. Actually, let me clone this link. So you can see that these 2 steps are pretty much the same, except it's not doing the create EMR cluster and the remove EMR cluster. It's just like trying to send, it's just trying to process the data I sent to it. With and just like with the existing cluster that I asked. So you saw here that it did the S3 file check and did the add steps. If I go to steps here and refresh the thing, you can see that it's just watching for these steps to at least get picked up and running. If I go to the S3 folder that I designated to it, you can see it generate a new output. I'll do the same part 000. Download it, save, replace. Now if I look, you can see that this is very this is just a basic word count example from the sample that it's pulled from.